Daniel Dubois will defend his regular WBA World Heavyweight title on the undercard of the farcical trilogy fight between Tyson Fury and Derek Chisora, and even more farcical is the fact that it's on pay-per-view, but I've done a separate video about that. This fight that Daniel Dubois is involved in will be against the guy called Kevin Lerena. Now, I'd never heard of Kevin Lerena before now, never seen him fight before, but I did go and look at some of his bouts, and we're going to have a look at his record here. And there are certainly quite a few names that I recognize on Kevin Lorena's record. So he is 28-1 with 14 KOs. So that one loss came back in 2014. I'll come on to that in a second. He's a South African fighter, southpaw. Most of his career has been spent at cruiserweight. Okay, he's called the KO Kid, although there's only 14 KOs on his ledger out of 28 fights. So if he is this serious puncher that his nickname suggests, he isn't very prolific at landing that power, as I say, with lots and lots of his fights going the distance. Exactly 50%. So, turned pro back in 2011. So he's been around for quite a while now. First loss, as I say, was to a guy called Johnny Moller in 2014. And Johnny Moller is a fellow South African. He's no great shakes based upon his record. But he did avenge that loss a couple years later, stopping Johnny Moller in 10. So that's a good sign, the fact that you're able to avenge a defeat, because it shows improvement, particularly when there's only 2 years between the first and second fight. He then goes on to fight the likes of Yuri Kalenga. Now, Kalenga was a decent fighter at cruiserweight. That was for the vacant IBO Cruiserweight World title. So, again, we don't really count the IBO as a legitimate sanctioning body, but the opponent that he fought for it is a dangerous guy. So that's a pretty good result there for Lorena, beating Yuri Kalenga. Perhaps Kalenga wasn't at his best in terms of, maybe a little bit past his prime, but it's still a good result. He then fought Dmitry Kircher, who was also a decent cruiserweight back in the days, outpointed him soundly over 12, then went on to fight the likes of Sefer Safiri, who isn't a decent cruiserweight, was able to stop him in 3. Firat Arslan, who was a decent cruiserweight back in the days. I remember watching Firat Arslan in the first Marco Huck fight where he got horribly robbed. Horribly robbed. And yeah, as I say, Arslan was a good fighter back in the days, but at this stage, how old is Firat Arslan? He must be well into his 40s, 45, 46. So at the time when Lorena fought him, he must have been in his at least early 30s. So again, this is a guy past his best, but it's still a good name on paper that Lorena's beaten there, stopped him in 6. Went on to debut at heavyweight in 2020 against a guy called Patrick Ferguson. I did actually see a clip of that fight. Then fought the the famous Bogdan Dinu and stopped him in 4 rounds. Again, that looked like a farce. Bogdan Dinu, on many occasions, has gone down from very innocuous looking shots, and he doesn't even seem to be hurt from the shots. He just goes down out of, I don't know what. Maybe people can ask questions regarding, is he going down? Does he have some ulterior motive for going down? Or is he just someone that doesn't have much heart? I'll let you guys decide on that. But he did beat Bogdan Dinu. That was earlier on this year. And his last fight was a 12-round unanimous decision, wide scorecards, over Mariusz Wach, who, again, Wach has been around the block, fought a lot of guys, was stopped for the first time by, is it Makhmudov? I hope I'm not getting his name wrong. He's a heavyweight. I've seen him a few times. Crude but strong and powerful. Fought Takam recently. He stopped Mariusz Wach for the first time. Well, let me not say stopped him for the first time. Let me pull up and reverse that. He dropped Mariusz Wach for the first time. Mariusz Wach's been stopped a number of times before in his career. Povetkin stopped him. Martin Bakole stopped him, but it never been dropped before. So this guy was the first individual to drop him, the Russian fighter who's based in Canada. Lorena didn't manage to stop Wach, but as you see, he did, or drop him, presumably, but he did win a comfortable decision on the scorecards over 12. And since moving up, of course, he's piled on a lot of weight. So he was 200 pounds back in 2020. And then later on in 2020, he's 211. And then by 2022, so he's had a big gap here between 2020 and 2022, presumably because of all the restrictions and stuff like that. He wasn't really able to get out like he wanted. And in that period, he's piled on a lot of weight. He's now in the low 230s. And if you see him and compare him to when he was a cruiserweight, you know, it's not a load of fat he's put on, it's mostly muscle. So again, make it out what you will. Not that you can't put muscle on naturally. I've been over this in several other videos, but it's a lot of weight, right? Talking about, but then again, you know, with a cruiserweight moving up, what was he weighing in the ring for his cruiserweight bouts? Maybe he was 210, 215, who knows? So you have to take that into account. Anyway, that is Kevin Lerena. So even though he's an obscure fighter by Western standards anyway, not many of you will have heard of him. I certainly never heard of him before. He isn't a complete donut, a mug, or a cream puff at all, at least not a cruiserweight. He was a competent fighter for sure, but he's never fought a heavyweight like Daniel Dubois. He's never fought someone who's young and this powerful, etc. as Dubois. So it's a totally different kettle of fish. Can he ask Dubois any questions? Can he spring an upset? It would seem doubtful, but he might be able to frustrate Dubois a little bit. And I don't know exactly what the thinking was for picking this as an opponent for Dubois. Maybe it's giving him some future prep in case he fights Alexander Usyk, because Lorena is a southpaw. Now, in his cruiserweight career, Lorena was a mover from what I've seen of him. He would move quite a lot and throw combinations. Certainly the Kalenga fight, he was fighting mostly on his bike. But since moving up to heavyweight, he's a lot heavier and he's more stationary, so he stands in the pocket more. That probably won't work out too well against Daniel Dubois if he decides to do that. I think that it would be prudent of him, if he wants to give himself the best chance of victory, to actually come in light for this Daniel Dubois fight. Lose a lot of that muscle that he's put on over the past few years. Probably not realistic, given the fact that his past two fights were this year and he was in the 230s both times. But in an ideal scenario, I think he should come in light and really use that speed to move around, because Dubois is not the fastest heavyweight out there. Also, Lorena's only 6'1". So when you're carrying 230 pounds at 6'1", I think it's a little excessive, especially considering this guy's really a cruiserweight. So he's shorter than Usyk, for example. If you see him now, let's say in the Marius Wack fight or the Bogdan Dinu fight, he's quite stocky at 6'1" and 230 plus. So yeah, I think that that's taken away some of his mobility. And at heavyweight, you're going to need mobility. I've been over this many times before. I think it's really counterproductive when these smaller fighters pile on loads of muscle to move up to heavyweight, because you are losing the main advantage you have over the big men, which is speed. You're diminishing your speed by putting on all that extra size. And I think it's unnecessary. But maybe it's a mental thing as much as anything. So yeah, that's Daniel Dubois' next opponent, Kevin Lerena, 28-1 from South Africa, the KO Kid. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Will Daniel Dubois have any issues here, or will this be a straightforward win for him? And what do you think of the matchmaking? Do you think that they should have got someone more known? Do you think they should have got someone more accomplished and proven at heavyweight? Or do you think this is a reasonable fight? Again, it is the WBA regular title. How do you even view that title? Most people say, well, it's a Mickey Mouse belt. And therefore, if it's a Mickey Mouse belt, then can you really argue with Mickey Mouse title defenses? You know, I don't know whether Kevin Lerena is ranked in the top 10 with the WBA, and I don't know how the rules really work with the regular belt versus the full belt. Let's have a look quickly at the WBA heavyweight rankings here. So, of course, Usyk is the full champion, Dubois the secondary champion, and yeah, Lorena is in number 13 in the WBA rankings. So that's where he is. Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below about this opponent. Is it acceptable? And in your mind, how do you think the fight will play out?